Why Ann Widdecombe? Why would a 28-year-old man allegedly drive almost 300 miles across England to the isolated home of Ann Widdecombe? Why her? Why that house? And why, after his arrest, did Counter Terrorism Police take control of the investigation? Joshua Kerry is now accused of entering Widdicombe's kitchen while she was eating lunch and attacking her with a hammer. Prosecutors say the entire incident lasted approximately 2 minutes. He then allegedly left with her wallet and drove back towards Rotherham. But that is only the beginning of this story, because reports claim that when investigators searched Kerry's home and electronic devices, they discovered political material, communist literature, and newspaper cuttings involving Nigel Farage and Reform UK. Some of those details remain unconfirmed. Others have now been presented in court. So what do we genuinely know about Joshua Kerry? What allegedly happened inside Ann Widdecombe's home? And was this robbery, political violence, terrorism, or something else entirely? Right now, that remains the biggest unanswered question. Wednesday, the 8th of July, began as an apparently ordinary day for Ann Widdecombe. The 78-year-old former Conservative minister was living at her home near Haytor on Dartmoor. It was an isolated rural property surrounded by the Devon countryside. Despite having left Parliament years earlier, Widdicombe remained politically active and publicly recognisable. She had served as a Conservative MP between 1987 and 2010. She held ministerial positions under John Major. She later became a Brexit Party MEP and remained closely associated with Nigel Farage and Reform UK. She was also known far beyond politics through television appearances, including Strictly Come Dancing and Celebrity Big Brother. That public profile is important, because investigators are now examining whether it played any role in what happened next. Shortly before the alleged attack, Widdicombe had completed a Christian radio interview. She was then expected to appear in another scheduled online interview, but she never joined. Messages were reportedly sent asking whether she was all right. Calls went unanswered. At approximately 12:30 that afternoon, prosecutors allege that a man entered Widdicombe's home while she was sitting in her kitchen eating lunch. They say that man was Joshua Kerry. According to details presented at Westminster Magistrates Court and later at the Old Bailey, Kerry allegedly entered wearing gloves and carrying a hammer. Prosecutors say he asked Widdicombe for her bank cards and identification. Then, they allege, he struck her repeatedly, 21 times to the head. He is accused of tipping her from the chair, leaving her on the kitchen floor and taking her wallet. The prosecution says the incident lasted roughly 2 minutes and was partly recorded by a camera inside the property. These are prosecution allegations. Joshua Kerry has not been convicted, and the evidence has not yet been tested before a jury. But if the prosecution's account is accurate, this was an extraordinarily violent and rapid attack, and it immediately raises a question. Was the request for cards and identification the genuine motive? Or was it intended to make the attack appear like a robbery? Nobody appears to have discovered Widdicombe immediately. The concern began when she failed to attend her scheduled interview. People working with her tried to make contact. By the following day, the 9th of July, somebody was sent to check the property. Widdicombe was discovered unresponsive with visible injuries. Emergency services were called, but she was pronounced dead. An inquest later heard that the provisional cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Her death immediately shocked British politics. This was not simply a retired politician who had disappeared from public life. Widdicombe remained outspoken, active and closely identified with some of the most contentious political debates in Britain. Immigration, Brexit, Reform UK, national identity, and Nigel Farage. That meant investigators could not ignore the possibility that she had been selected because of her political profile. But at that stage, police still had to identify who had allegedly travelled to her home. The investigation quickly began focusing on a red Vauxhall Corsa. Police reportedly traced the vehicle travelling between South Yorkshire and Devon. Prosecutors allege that Kerry had driven from Rotherham to Widdicombe's home. That is a journey of nearly 300 miles each way, potentially more than 500 miles in a single day. This does not appear to have been somebody living nearby who acted during an unexpected confrontation. The prosecution describes it as a planned and targeted attack. Kerry was arrested at approximately 9 o'clock on the evening of Saturday, the 11th of July, at his home in Rotherham. That was 3 days after the alleged killing. A second man, aged 26, was also arrested during the early stages of the investigation, but was later released without charge. Police have said they are not currently looking for anybody else in connection with Widdicombe's death. Kerry was initially arrested on suspicion of murder, but the case then took a more serious and unusual turn. He was rearrested under terrorism legislation. Counter Terrorism Policing South East took over the investigation. That does not mean the alleged attack has officially been declared terrorism. It means investigators found enough information to justify examining whether there had been preparation for a terrorist act, or whether a political or ideological motive may have been involved. Police described the investigation as complex and intensive. By the time Kerry was charged, officers were reportedly following more than 800 separate lines of inquiry. That would include vehicle movements, cameras, telephone data, internet searches, communications, financial activity, and material recovered during searches. And it is what police allegedly found at Kerry's home that has produced the most speculation. Publicly, relatively little is known about Joshua Kerry. He is 28 years old and lived on Byerley Road in Rotherham, South Yorkshire. Reports suggest he had previously worked for a lift company. Relatives and people who reportedly knew him have described him as quiet, reclusive, and in one account, a gentle giant. An older photograph reportedly showed him participating in a charity fundraising event. There have also been reports that his father had recently died. None of that explains what prosecutors allege happened in Devon, and it certainly does not establish guilt, motive, or ideology. Quiet people can commit terrible crimes. Equally, people can be falsely characterized by frightened neighbors and sensational headlines after an arrest. That is why the evidence recovered by investigators matters far more than descriptions such as loner or gentle giant. Some newspapers have claimed Kerry's home contained newspaper cuttings involving Nigel Farage, Reform UK, and immigration. The cuttings were allegedly pinned to walls inside the property. Other reports claim investigators found Russian or communist material on electronic devices. Sources quoted by newspapers have suggested Kerry held hostile views towards Reform UK, Nigel Farage, and the party's immigration policies. Nigel Farage has publicly described Kerry as a hard-left activist and claimed he had expressed hatred towards him. But that must be treated carefully. At the time of writing, police have not released a complete list of everything recovered from Kerry's home. They have not formally announced that Kerry was a communist. They have not confirmed that he belonged to any organized political or extremist group. And Farage's description remains a political figure's claim, not a conclusion reached by a court. There is currently no publicly verified manifesto, no confirmed membership of a communist organization, no published collection of threatening social media posts, no confirmed evidence that Kerry had previously contacted Widdicombe, and no established personal connection between them. That absence makes the alleged journey even more difficult to understand. If Kerry did not personally know Widdicombe, how was she selected? Had he researched her address? Had he watched her movements? Was her home chosen because it was remote? Or was she simply a recognizable political figure representing views he allegedly opposed? Those questions are likely to become central to the prosecution case. The presence of Counter Terrorism Police has led many people online to declare that the alleged killing was politically motivated. That conclusion is premature. In British law, terrorism can involve serious violence designed to advance a political, religious, racial, or ideological cause. An attack does not have to be carried out by a member of a recognized terrorist organization. A person acting alone can potentially commit terrorism. But ideology must still be demonstrated through evidence. Possessing communist books would not prove terrorism. Disliking Nigel Farage would not prove terrorism. Pinning political cuttings to a wall would not by itself prove a terrorist motive. Investigators would need to establish why the alleged attack occurred and what Kerry intended to achieve. Were there searches relating specifically to Widdicombe? Was her address stored on a device? Were there messages discussing violence? Had the journey been planned in advance? Did Kerry allegedly select Widdicombe because of her politics? Or was the motive financial, personal, or psychological? At present, Kerry has been charged with murder. He has not been charged with a terrorism offence. The Crown Prosecution Service has said that inquiries into motive are continuing. That distinction matters. A terrorism arrest gives police wider investigative powers. It does not automatically mean terrorism will appear on the final indictment. The wallet may become one of the strangest parts of the case. Prosecutors allege Kerry asked Widdicombe for bank cards and identification before attacking her. They say he then left with her wallet. On the surface, that suggests robbery. But travelling hundreds of miles to rob one isolated and nationally recognisable politician would make very little sense as a spontaneous financial crime. There were countless easier and less conspicuous targets between Rotherham and Devon. So was the wallet the object of the journey? Was it taken after the alleged attack as an afterthought? Was it intended to mislead investigators? Or did Kerry allegedly want identification, bank cards, or another item for a reason that has not yet been revealed? There may be a straightforward explanation, but until the prosecution produces further evidence, the alleged theft creates more questions than answers. The same applies to the violence. 21 blows, if proven, could suggest rage, determination, or an intention to ensure death. But motive cannot safely be diagnosed from the number of injuries alone. That is precisely why investigators will be studying Kerry's alleged planning, digital history, and actions before and after the event. Kerry appeared at Westminster Magistrates' Court wearing a grey tracksuit. He spoke only to confirm his name and personal details. He did not enter a plea. He later appeared at the Old Bailey and was remanded in custody. A case management hearing has been scheduled for the 9th of October 2026. A provisional trial date has been set for the 8th of June 2027. Until that trial, there will be strict legal limits on what can be reported. The prosecution will eventually have to explain how Kerry was allegedly connected to the vehicle, the journey, and Widdicombe's property. It will need to present the camera evidence. It will need to establish what was recovered from his home and devices. And most importantly, it will need to explain why it believes he travelled hundreds of miles to target Ann Widdecombe. The defence will then have the opportunity to challenge that evidence and present its own case. Kerry remains legally innocent unless and until a jury finds him guilty. For now, the known story is already extraordinary. A man allegedly leaves Rotherham and drives across the country. He arrives at the isolated home of one of Britain's most recognisable political figures. Prosecutors say he enters while she is eating lunch. 2 minutes later, he leaves with her wallet. 3 days after that, he is arrested hundreds of miles away. Then Counter Terrorism Police take control. Political cuttings are allegedly discovered. Communist material is reportedly found. And detectives begin examining whether the killing of Ann Widdecombe was motivated by ideology. But the crucial word remains whether. There is still no confirmed political motive. There is still no terrorism charge. There is still no publicly established connection between Joshua Kerry and Ann Widdecombe. And there is still no clear explanation for why she was allegedly chosen. This could ultimately be presented as an act of political terrorism. It could be prosecuted solely as murder. Or the evidence may reveal a motive that nobody outside the investigation has yet considered. Until the trial, the most important part of this story is not what people online claim to know. It is what remains unanswered. Why Ann Widdecombe? Why drive nearly 300 miles? And what exactly did police discover that caused a murder investigation to become a counter-terrorism case?